Connecting with Purpose is about doing what matters most in a time when our families, workplaces, and communities need us. This show from Purpose Views presents honest conversations about what's possible when we invest in helping our people be their best, purposeful selves. You'll hear the challenges of making those investments and tips for reaping their rewards. This show is designed to help people-first leaders like you create the impact you seek. Let me introduce you to the purpose-driven and real-talking hosts, Mark, Neil, and Nell.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Connecting with Purpose. I'm really excited to have Ophelia Byers here, who's the founder and principal of SitchRoom. It's a leadership and coaching and consulting business that supports leaders and people in the healthcare system, which is essentially where Ophelia spent over 20 years of her career. I've had an opportunity to catch up with Ophelia once before, and she is, and it's very clear, an avid learner, and has impressively earned more letters after her name than there are letters in the alphabet. And I know because I checked. So she's been able to apply this learning, along with obviously considerable expertise that she's developed over the years in the healthcare system to really advocate for patients and her colleagues. And most latterly, that was as a chief nursing officer and executive prior to transitioning over to SitchRoom. We both share a love for New York City and New Jersey, but we're also both equally passionate about enhancing people's performance, well-being, and impact, which are the three things we talk about at Purpose Fused and the three things you focus on at SitchRoom. So it's going to be a really enjoyable conversation, and it's a great pleasure to welcome Ophelia to the show. So thank you for being here with us on Connecting with Purpose.
Mark, thank you so much for having me, and many thanks to your audience for listening today.
You're very welcome, and on their behalf, I'm sure they're really going to enjoy it. So, well, in typical form, we kick off with magic moments, and most people that have listened before will have the idea on these now, but essentially kind of looking back at life, looking back at career, but three magic moments, three moments that stand out that if you had to score them a 10 out of 10 based upon the impact they had on your life as you look back with the benefit of time, these would be three that kind of spring to mind, regardless of whether those moments felt awesome and positive at the time or actually whether they were really challenging. What is it that stands out for you when you think of three magic moments?
Mark, thanks for asking. Immediately, what comes to mind for me is family. And that translates into marrying my husband. My biggest support that I have, someone who believes in me more than I believe in myself, someone who was my initial leadership inspiration. He's been a manager his entire career, a leader of people his entire career. And when I saw him interacting with his team members and how he cared for customers, I thought, I want to do that. And so big inspiration there. Another magic moment is the birth of my children. I have two children, a daughter and son, and being able to, especially as an obstetrics nurse, a labor and delivery nurse, who cared for so many families and helped them usher their children into the world, I had this chance to bring life into the world and have this incredible responsibility to protect them and uplift them. And it's such an honor. And finally, the death of my mother. I lost her in 2017 and was there holding her hand and playing some of her favorite gospel music while she took her last breath. And as difficult and traumatic as that was, I lost her to gynecological cancer and only 9 months, very interestingly, from diagnosis to death, right? And that's usually the time that we say, at least colloquially, is the time of a gestation or pregnancy, right? And in that time, to know that she was dying with a terminal form of cancer was just heart-wrenching. And to be there for her when she left this world, like she was there for me when I entered, it was an incredible, profound moment. So those are my magic moments, moments that have impacted me, that drive me, and comfort me.
Thank you for sharing those, and thank you for sharing such a personal. Well, they're all very personal, obviously, and all incredibly magic in the definition of how we define it in terms of impact. And if you were tying them together a little bit, what would you say your mum, and I say mum and but mom, what would you say your mum would be most proud of in terms of where you are in your career and what you've chosen to sort of focus on?
Love that question. She would be most proud of my adherence to her rearing, of helping people, of caring about the world, caring deeply about the world, and being very sure that I have something to contribute that can help it make it better. That is how she raised me. And that is what I strive to do in everything that I do.
So this is awesome, right? Because you've essentially just answered components of the next question, which is, but this is from your mum's perspective, right? So your mum sort of said, like, she brought you up to help and care for people, care for the world, and to ensure that you're kind of being intentional about how you're contributing, making it a better place. If I was going to talk to you about purpose, and there's our little formula here, but when you think about your purpose being application of best self in a way that makes a difference, so it includes things you're passionate about, that you care about, that you believe in, that you're good at, that you enjoy, and it includes intentionality of impact, and that the intersection of those is your application of them. How would you describe your own purpose, and how does that compare to how your mum might describe it?
My own purpose is really very much aligned with my mom's, because I'm a good child and I listen.
Can you teach my kids that?
She might have a different view, but it's really aligned. It's people-centered. It's believing in the essence of who people are, not necessarily all the things that life and its struggles and its traumas can kind of layer on our essence, right? But being able to discern what someone's essence is, or if I can't discern it, asking and asking meaningful questions that show empathy and interest in who they are, who they were, and who they hope to be. And that people-centeredness is really what drives me. And again, everything I do, it shows up in my professional life. It shows up in my personal life. When I feel outside of my purpose, it's because I'm not doing that, right? I'm not honoring the humanity of another person or of myself. And I think that that's another big piece my mom always taught me. I was her only child, and it was, how do you look out for yourself, right? She didn't use the term self-care, but it was really that same thing. What does it mean to look out for yourself? Because if we are not caring for ourselves, if we're not advocating for ourselves, we cannot in earnest do that for others. So my purpose, again, is people-centered, which also includes myself. And I think that is really in alignment with the tenets of my upbringing.
Yeah, it sounds exactly aligned. Really understanding, and you said discerning or asking the essence of who people are, who they were, who they want to be, and helping sort of guide them, or asking them the questions that enable them to kind of align to that best version of their future selves. And so and that kind of gets to the application component of our model a little bit, because you've been in a transition. You've been 20 years in the healthcare system, and now you're going to be kind of coming from outside into the healthcare system to support leaders and practitioners and folks within that system with their well-being and their performance and their impact, and those, how those three things all kind of intertwine. And so the application of what you do is changed, because you were a practitioner there and now you're going to be an advisor and a supporter and a coach and a consultant. How do you see the essence of, if you like, your best self? How has that kind of maybe evolved over that time period, and what brought you to changing the application now from being within the system to from outside in?
So the evolution for me comes in realizing first that as I progressed in healthcare leadership and nursing leadership and got further away from the essence of nursing, which is the nursing paradigm around people and environment and health and nursing as a profession, as I got further away from the clinical aspect of that, right? I realized that the clinical aspect is only that. It is an aspect. There is this paradigm, there is this framework and this kind of meta message about nursing and about everything, right? And I am still a nurse as a leader, even if I'm not practicing clinically. I still hold these four cornerstones of people, environment, health, and nursing to be true. And now I'm just practicing differently. And my practice is leadership. And once I was able to reconcile that in my mind, because sometimes in nursing, and I'm not speaking for all nurses, I can only speak for my experience, I was heavily focused on the clinical part, and that's what nursing is, and that's what makes me a nurse. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing nursing. And making that, it's not even a pivot, but for me, it's a growth, right? That my growth and understanding and kind of opening up my lens to see that nursing is all of this. All of this is nursing. You are now practicing as a leader. And now in your leadership practice, you can hold that nursing paradigm to be true. You can hold the nursing process, which any nurses listening will know it's assessment, diagnosis, planning, implementation, and evaluation. And those things are critical to leadership, right? Critical to everyday life. And so as I was able to broaden my view and deepen it, right, add depth and breadth to my view, I began to look at my leadership as a discipline unto itself that needed the same type of continuous learning and development, focus and attention, reading and learning. As you mentioned earlier, I love to learn. I love to gather more and more knowledge. I started to treat my leadership practice the way that I treated my nursing practice. And that was really an important evolution for me. And then as I'm treating leadership as a discipline, it opened my eyes even more to seeing how great a need there is for leaders who are not just knowledgeable about the technical aspects of the work that they are leading, but are knowledgeable about leadership practice. And it's missing, in a lot of environments, not just in healthcare. It is missing. And we know it's missing when we see employee engagement results. We know it's missing when we have issues with turnover and retention. We know it's missing when we have adverse events, no matter what industry you're in, things that you didn't foresee happening that happen, which can happen, right? But some of it is also about how we practice as leaders. And so realizing that there's such a need I wanted to really just hone in on that and be of optimal support.
I was going somewhere, and you've already kind of completely teed up the question, because you did really talk to some of the things that were consistent, right? Once you realised that really all it was that changed was your perspective and your application of the same best practices, but now with a leadership lens. Those things were consistent. When you look back on that, from whether it's your experience or whether it's the experience of people you've seen that have gone through similar kind of adjustments, from being a practitioner in a role as a nurse to being a leader that is a nurse, and that the primary focus now is leading as a nurse versus practicing as a nurse. Not so much what are consistent, but what's the challenges? So what do you see from a very practical perspective being maybe like the top 3 challenges for individuals to go from a individual contributing role to a leadership role? What do you think are probably the top few things that spring to mind?
The first thing is making that shift in your own mind. Because sometimes we make the shift in title because other people believed in us and because we thought we'd give it a shot at this next level. But we haven't made the transition in our own minds. And I've seen that in nurse leaders and other leaders who are very busy, right? They're going. But yet the work that they need to do, the leadership work, is not getting done. And part of that is not for lack of caring, but for not having made that transition. And so sometimes lack of confidence and not being sure what to do in this new realm. So I go back to my comfort zone. And so I find myself, and so how does that show up to our team members rather? It shows up to our team members as micromanagement. Right? It shows up to our team members in ways that we may not intend, right? And it is because that's our comfort zone. So, oh, I've been helping put in IVs, I've been helping do this, and I've been helping do that. And what I often say to nurse leaders is, okay, and in an urgent or emergent situation, if you had to go put in IVs or help admit a patient or whatever, good. That is exactly what we're supposed to do because fundamentally we are nurses. But as a leader, I need you to step back, do an after action review, kind of debrief with your team and debrief with yourself and say, what was going on operationally that necessitated me jumping in, right, to do this work? Because there may be a staffing need. There may be a clinical competency need amongst the team that is there. There may be adequate staff, but there may be things that they don't know. I might have to think differently about how I schedule a shift where I have a complementary number of experienced nurses and lesser experienced nurses, right? That's your job as a leader to do that type of strategizing, if you will. And if you're always in the trenches, who's doing that?
Right.
So, yes, important work is being done. Yes, you're busy. Yes, that work needs to get done. But is that the work that you should be doing as a leader, or should you be doing the planning needed? Should you be doing your assessment, diagnosis, planning, implementation, and evaluation, right? The nursing process to make sure that the resources that the team needs to do their job best are there. So one of the main things is making that transition yourself. And then there's a few things, but I'll just add one more. It's helping others to make that transition in terms of how they see you, right? Because now you've shifted from the bedside to, perhaps the boardroom. That's a longer journey, but that transition sometimes is hard for other people as well. They may not take you seriously as a leader. They may no longer see you as in touch with what they do. And so I think understanding that these are pretty common pitfalls when you rise up through the ranks, especially if you do it in the same organization. It's good to be anticipatory. And it's good to have your own support system that is helping facilitate that transition, that's helping to help the team understand why now, and how this is going to look. And that preparation is also really, really key, right? Preparing the team for that transition and preparing the person for that transition. So that requires other people around, mentors, sponsors, coaches, to help facilitate. Those would be the two most common and actually really critical parts of transition.
I think they're huge, and I think they've each got kind of a number of like sub bullets that you'll probably end up focusing on in some of your work, right? Which we're going to talk about in a minute around SitchRoom. But so what I heard there was the first thing is, once you move into one of these leadership roles, you've got to transition in your own mind, because that's where it starts, right? It starts with your own thoughts, your own perception, your own expectations that then fuel your your ambitions, your actions, and so on and so forth. And if you're not really clear about that, what that shift looks like, it's more likely that you might lack confidence in doing it, or belief in yourself for doing it, and therefore just sort of slip back into what you know, which is the comfort zone. And the second thing is bringing people along for the journey, that they see you in that role. What's the you alluded to this a little bit. What's the glue between them? There's something around like confidence and kind of knowledge and practice and feedback and that sort of thing. There's something around support system you mentioned. There's something around kind of preparing. Like, if you were to kind of try to define what the glue is between being able to see yourself as a leader and actually practice being a leader, and bringing the people along with you on that journey, what sits there in the middle, and what can help support people in making that transition?
Preparation, culture more broadly, and preparation is a big part of that. And here's what I mean by that. Let's just take the example of a leader moving up within an organization. Was there succession planning where, when that leader gets promoted, everyone kind of knew that was going to happen, right? They knew that that person was going to be the person, or was on the short list, right? They'd already seen that person functioning in that capacity to some extent, right? Because a part of succession planning is not just saying, I pick you, right? It's identifying hopefully a few people for the purposes of an equitable environment, right? If identifying at least 2 people who could do the role, and then giving them opportunities to try their hand at it, right? Here's giving them bigger projects, letting them be seen in that capacity, because that starts to shape their minds around what the next level could look like. It might even help them to say, I don't want this next level, right? And you don't really know until you get a taste of it. It also helps others to say, oh, I can see them doing that. So there's this other, right? Being a leader of leaders is that higher level leader has this facilitative responsibility to prepare the culture, prepare the team, prepare the successors, and then give them that opportunity. This is a culture matter, because there's all these things that go along with this kind of preparation. It has to do with obviously being committed to the mission and vision and values of the organization, right? And knowing that that all can't hinge on one person. I have to continue to create leaders. So it's about that higher level leadership philosophy, about creating more and more leaders, and realizing that not all leaders have titles, so that I should be creating leaders even at the bedside, right? They don't have to have a manager or supervisory title to lead and show up in that way in what they do. So there's a mindset that the higher level leadership has to have. There has to be a skill set around preparing someone for the next role, so competencies around that. But there also has to be things like your own leadership confidence, right? Because to share your stage with someone, to share the mic, as they say, takes a certain level of confidence, takes a certain level of having a bigger picture, being committed to sharing power. And that's where the culture comes in. Wanting to see the organization succeed, the client succeed, the team members succeed, and realizing that you're a part of that process. You are not the thing. It doesn't have to be you all the time. It doesn't have to be you only. So there's a mindset around there. There's a culture underpinning and overhanging in this, and then there's the competencies of actually preparing the team and succession planning.
Yeah, and I think quite clearly in that kind of ecosystem is the responsibility of the senior leadership to understand all that context, and for them to provide the support, the resources, the training, the knowledge, the mentoring to the leader that's being into the role, and to set the kind of the system and the culture, and the not set the culture, set the system, the communications, the expectations for the broader group and what that means, which is purely teeing the new leader up for success. And so I wanted to dig into that a little bit, because obviously it's going to be part of your work, but also because I was interested in the answer, because now I want to flip it back to you as somebody who has very recently transitioned into running your own enterprise, SitchRoom, and I'll have you talk about kind of the organization and why it's called SitchRoom and those sorts of things in a second. But just to focus a little bit on the transition, you yourself now have these two elements, right? There's the mindset of Ophelia running SitchRoom and what that means. And you need to bring people along because you're going to need clients, right? And I know you've already got clients, but when you think about those two things for yourself, just maybe unpack them a little bit for us in terms of like when you knew your mindset was ready, and like and sort of how you've been able to prepare for that and actually bring that mindset to reality. And then what are you doing to bring people along for the journey? Because there's no one else to set the context for you than you.
So I love this question. My entire leadership career has been about doing the work, right? The work that I'm supposed to do according to my job description, and creating. I am a creative person deep down inside. So we talk about essence. I don't come off as creative often. I am very kind of practical, but deep down inside, I'm a creative person, and it manifested in my daughter. I'm so happy. She's an artist, but deep down inside, I'm a creator, and I would always take my work and just I saw it as like something I could make something beautiful out of. So I don't want to just do the job, and that would be fine. There's nothing wrong with just doing the job and meeting the goals. But I also care about the how. I care about the journey. And I care about making beautiful experiences for people along the way. So everybody involved, I want them to go, I am so glad I was on that project. And not only I feel good about the outcome, but I feel good about the process. And how can we make it enjoyable, fun, a professional development experience for people along the way? How can they walk away from it with something that they can even put on their resume, right? That it's not just about meeting the organizational goal or the team goal, but it's, okay, what do you need in this process? Because here's all the elements of the project. Is there something in particular you're really good at, or something that you're not so good at that you want to learn? And as I started to do those things, I found myself developing leaders, right? And people who then wanted to go, I want to do what you do. I think I can do it too. There were times that I would help people get promotions that were higher than where I was at the time. But I used the leverage that I had in terms of the relationships that I built. I was credible as a professional. I was credible as a person. And I really believed in that person's work. And I'm like, hey, would you consider this person? So I become someone that people would reach out to and say, I follow you on LinkedIn and I know we don't know each other, but I feel like, I could really benefit from, your knowledge. And that's where I started to have this concept of energy exchange. Actually, before I even began my coaching training program, which is centered around levels of energy, I had this idea of energy exchange. So one holiday, about 3 years ago, my cousin through marriage, my husband's cousin and family came up and we were just late talking through the night. And I mentioned he has his own business. And I mentioned, I think I might want to do that, but I'm not sure. And he's like, well, I said, I think I might want to have my own business, but I'm not sure what I would do. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, you're an executive. You could do all kinds of things. And it's like, tell me what you were doing. So he started coaching me, right, informally. And as I start to explain to him this passion for seeing people grow in their careers and taking care of leaders, he was like, okay, so do that. And he said it so matter of factly that I was like kind of taken aback. Like, you think it's that simple? But I needed someone to say, it's that simple. It's not to say that entrepreneurship is simple. Oh, goodness, no. It's to simply say that taking your passions to the next level is that simple. You're doing it already. And when he said to me, you're already doing it, that just sent off a light bulb, which then speaks to my logo. It really sent off a light bulb to me. And it was a very pivotal energy exchange for me in a really informal coaching that said, yeah, this is what I do. I do it every day. And I started paying attention to myself. I became an observer of myself. And every day at work, I'm like, I coach all day, every day, and
It's another magic moment.
It's another magic moment, right? It's like, wow, I do this all day long. And people from other departments who don't report to me will come by and say, I heard you're the person to talk to about this. And so I think that was really big for me. And what I would want people to get out of this is not about me, that I was doing it all along and I'm so great at doing it. I want people to get out of this how a person took the time to edify another person. My cousin, right? That's what I would want you to get from this story, is that here's someone who took the time and just said, all right, get it done. You're already doing it. Like you got it. You're making a difference. You see the outcomes of that. Why not level up? And how can we be that to other people all the time? That is my purpose. That's my objective. And it was a blessing to have someone pour into me that way.
I want to unpack energy exchange in a minute, but because I'm just, my mind's spinning on like all the different applications of that. But I do love the fact that the thing that sets your mind in the right place, in your instance, while you had all the answers, you had all the experience, and yes, you were already doing it, you just didn't realize you were doing it because it was this deep-seated kind of deep-seated energy for being a creator, right? And caring about the journey and caring about the experience and making it fun, enjoyable, meaningful for people, what has meaning for them, that you just naturally started applying your formal role and responsibility in those ways, which brought those people along, developed people, grew people, and that was your passion, regardless of whether you knew it or not. That was your passion, and you knew that, but it required somebody else, or at least you benefited from somebody else very matter-of-factly telling you that, which sometimes is easier for someone else to tell you than it is to tell yourself in the mirror, because you don't know even what questions to ask yourself sometimes. And I think that's a huge thing for so many people, right? That we can all think of experiences in our lives where we've maybe lacked a little bit of confidence, or we needed to take a risk, or we were maybe thinking about jumping into another job or setting up a business or whatever. And there's something that either happened at that point in time or something you can connect back to before, where somebody believed in you more than you believed in yourself, and it clicked and you realized it, and it gave you the confidence and belief in yourself to actually go for it. And I love that that was an energy exchange with your husband. But yeah, unpack for us a little bit more this concept of energy exchange and what that looks like, if you like, in practical terms, some examples of what that would mean to you.
It's every connection. It's what we're doing right now. And the reason that you go, okay, that's simple. The reason why I name the thing is because when we see every interaction with another living thing as an energy exchange, it helps us value each other more and value that interaction. Like, this is important, this conversation, right? And it's not even just about what's being said, the content and the context. It's important because two people are sharing ideas, right? Vibing off of each other, as my kids say. And when you value that and you're present with the idea of that, it makes it meaningful every time you connect with someone. And I think just even hearkening back to my bedside nursing days when shifts were really difficult, when we didn't have enough staffing, when we didn't have all the supplies or something like that. But when I walk into a patient's room, I'm fully aware that I am about to engage in an energy exchange. Actually, that it doesn't even have to be verbal. The minute I walk in and we're present with each other, energy is being exchanged. And it matters how I show up for them. And so I can't bring the stressors from outside of their room into that space. Also, if I am cognizant of that and if I'm honoring that, I then help generate an energy field, right, that brings out the better in them. So then that fills my cup. And I've gone into, on the worst days, it has some of the best interactions with patients and their family members that just made, like, when my day is over, I'm like, yeah, it was a good one, even though everything around us wasn't. But that pod of energy and that connection filled my cup. So I think being present with that concept and wanting to give, but I have a kind of radical idea about also wanting to receive. It's okay to care about you getting what you need to sustain yourself, right? It's okay to put gas in your car, right? Or as people say, fill your cup. And so I think it's almost disingenuous when we say it's not about me. I'm worried when people say it's not about them, right? Because I actually
it's
worry.
not sustainable. Yeah, it's not sustainable. I mean, this rings so true to our philosophy at Purpose Fused on impact, which is me, we, and world. They're the three dimensions of impact, right? And me's there for a reason, because so many people forget about it, because they want to be selfless, because they want to support other people. They don't want to appear to be selfish. But if you want to have the optimal impact on your we, which is the people you surround yourself with, and anything else beyond that that you care about, whether it's a cause or a movement or whatever that is, religion, whatever, that you can't do it unless you're filling your own cup. You can't pour from an empty tank, right? And so that really resonates with me. And I'm scribbling down something when you were talking about energy exchange, because we talk about energy being a multiplier, right? I say time multiplied by energy equals impact. And there's positive energy and there's negative energy. And I love the concept of energy exchange and it's now stuck with me, so I'll use it and think about it a lot. But with regard to connections and conversations and the type of conversation you have, your body language, like being present, all of those things, that there is a give and a receive, and that's kind of what will shape the outcomes from whatever that exchange was. But I also like it as a tool for being intentional about our time in terms of what we choose to spend our time on. So not just connections with other people and certain experiences and things, but actually there's an energy exchange with everything we do. Absolutely. And some things fill us up and we're excited about them, and we can do them like and just continue to kind of like cruise like we're in flow. We can't do it 24/7. But other things just suck the energy out of us. Do you see energy exchange as being just a really simple term for intentionality, in terms of how people are choosing to spend their time and energy, what they're choosing to spend it on, and who they're choosing to spend it with?
I love that. Absolutely. Intentionality underpins energy exchange for sure, because you are being intentional about how you choose to show up. It's a choice, right? In my coaching training program, we actually are taught that, which is IPEC, we are actually taught that there really isn't positive or negative energy per se. It's just levels of energy, and we can, any one of us at any time can function along that spectrum of energy levels. But yes, and I love what you said as well, everything that we interact with, ultimately everything that we do is going to reach people. So we know that energy is not always direct, right? You pour your energy into a book that then has an energetic effect on people when they read it. So as long as you're seeing that, and that requires us to widen our lenses, right? Looking at things with a depth and breadth that is really thinking about impact and effect. Absolutely. And then, yes, it is being that law of self-preservation, right? That law that says I have to be also, to survive and quite frankly to thrive, I have to be thoughtful about where I put my energy. And I have to be thoughtful about what energies I allow into my space. And that is a part of a responsibility that we have to be careful not to go from discerning, to hypervigilant, right? Not to be so careful that we become cynical, but there is a balance there to make sure that we are being thoughtful. So I like to think of it as kind of fuel economy.
Yeah, and thinking about how long the journey is and what energy level you should be at based upon what it is you're doing at that time. Yeah, and I when we were chatting before, I was saying it's very complementary to our approach to energy, which, in addition to it being this multiplier, is looking at energy for impact. So you're looking at levels of energy. So when I do this, I have this level of energy. When I do this, I have this level of energy. And that, like you said, they're not necessarily positive and negative. They're just different levels. They show up differently in terms of their effects on you and therefore on others. And the energy for impact is about understanding the type of energy that you have. So some people are energized by possibilities, some are energized by planning, some people are energized by practice, some people are energized by progress, and other people are energized by people. In fact, we're all energized by all of them. We just have a unique mix of the things that light us up more and that we naturally are drawn into, than the things that we can draw upon. And it's such an incredibly powerful tool for intentionality, both in terms of what you do, how you do it, who you do it with, and then being intentional about the energy exchange that happens while you're in that moment. So I love the combo of those. I'll share a bit more with that in a minute with you. Let's just let's transition quickly to back to you, but kind of fast forwarding a little bit. And this is something we can close out on. You've been running SitchRoom for the next however many years. you decide eventually that it's probably time to like retire a little bit. I'm still going to do some stuff. I probably won't, but I'm going to be very picky now in terms of the things I choose to do and the people I choose to work with. And I can look back really proudly on what I've been able to achieve. Two-part question, I suppose. The first question is just, what does success look like for that organization when you really fast forward to when you're choosing to sort of really take your foot off the gas? And related, what does the impact part of that look like in terms of like, how would you want to be remembered as a result of having established SitchRoom and what it was able to do in terms of its impact on people, systems, etc.?
Oh, I love this question. Quite a bit of visioning involved here. So I'd like to see SitchRoom become a go-to organization, for a go-to resource for developing leaders in various industries. So definitely healthcare, including healthcare, but not exclusively healthcare. So, because again, leadership is a separate paradigm in practice, and it's not about the technical work. So I think that helping other industries to see value in it would be wonderful. Expanding, bringing in, other coaches to develop in this work, and expanding beyond even one-to-one coaching and the workshops that I do now and group coaching, and really moving along with technology to have more reach through digital products and things like that. So I certainly see it evolving with the times and also expanding across industries. How would I like to be remembered? I love that question, because when you talk about purpose, I think, purpose is just kind of my reason for being, right? My why, which is huge. And that's kind of me and how I see things. But I think this other element of purpose, the other side of the coin, is when I leave this earth and people are gathered at my homegoing service, is what we call it in my southern roots, my Georgian roots, are my homegoing service, which I hope is a party and a celebration. What will the majority of the people have to say about me? And my hope is that the majority of the people there, the vast majority, are able to say similar things, that the themes will be similar, and they will speak of me being people-centered, me being someone that cared about making the world better through making individual lives better. I hope that they will be able to speak openly about the things that I didn't do so well, knowing that I would have welcomed that and that I did in life, and I wouldn't mind it at the party either. If they said, but here's how she got on my nerves. And I'm okay with saying that, and I don't see that as dishonoring her, because I know that when she was here with us, she welcomed that, and she wanted that kind of honesty, and she wanted to be better. So that's a part of purpose for me too, is being consistent, and that's where we come with intentionality, being consistent in how I show up for people, bolstering my energy level if it's not where it needs to be. Because I do want to not just be my best self for me, but I want to be that for other people. And that's how I'm hoping in the end this all ends for me.
And I know that concept is a little morbid, but I like the homegoing phraseology around it. That is obviously like one of the things we coach people on, is like, again, for perspective, right? Looking back, looking forward, etc.
Yeah.
But what I love specifically about what you said is how it literally ladders right back around to your mum. When I asked that very first question, But what the things you want people to be saying about you then are the things that your mum would have said about you now. And it just shows that there's complete alignment there in your purpose and sort of where that came from and where you're taking it. And I'm guessing, because it's the only thing you didn't say about her, but I'm guessing she probably told you how it was as well. She wasn't shy to give you feedback in the same way that hopefully the folks will be able to do the same thing and have a little laugh and joke about it. So I really appreciate the fact that we're ending with people-centered. We're ending with this deep care for supporting and helping other people, and this acceptance and openness to feedback as part of learning, because that's another piece, a huge piece of who you are. So thank you for sharing that, and it's a lovely way to end our journey today with Connecting with Purpose.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed our energy exchange and in this opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining.
We're energized about this journey and hope you choose to join us. Click the subscribe button now so you don't miss out on all the actionable wisdom to come.